All right, I would like to introduce a fellow Canadian to the stage. He was the guest on episode 145 of the podcast. Go back and listen to it. He is the creator of Badgers.Cash, FundMe.Cash. I would like to introduce Sayoshi with BSomeone.
Let's see how this goes. Okay. So my talk is wrapping up the BLISS conference. This year it is titled Be Someone. It goes over the apps I've made and the journey I've had through Bitcoin Cash, doing smart contracts. I'm also extremely nervous because this is super outside of my comfort zone. And this is me trying to live up to the Be Someone. So, who am I? I'm Kyle, and I go by Sayoshi Nakamario online. I first started following Bitcoin in 2010, and I've been learning about it ever since. Learning about blockchains was something that I wanted to do because at the time I was working in IT doing servers and networking, but blockchain just kind of got my focus. And about 4 years ago, I decided to jump in and try to code and actually have a bigger impact in the space. And these are some of the things that I've made, which we'll go over. So if you just want to get to the basics and just jump right in, cashscript.org is where you want to go to learn smart contracts. It's got documentation and examples to go over things. This you will need to know. Cashtokens.org, you want to know for the cash tokens upgrade that introduced tokens and NFTs into Bitcoin Cash, and local state. You will need to know this. The BCH ecosystem, helpme.cash, which is something I made, mini-satoshi.cash, and awesomebitcoin.cash are 3 directory sites for Bitcoin Cash. So if you want to know what Bitcoin Cash is, what apps there are, what services, you need to go to these. Come say hi. We have a bunch of Telegram groups that are quite active in Bitcoin Cash. These are some of the ones that I would probably recommend joining. And there's also the bitcoincashresearch.org forum for very high signal talk. So if you want to get into the super big technicals, that is the good place to go. Mr. Zwet's channel on YouTube by Matthew has quite a few tutorials as well on it that you can go check out. A lot of them to do with CashScript. So if you're interested, check them out. So how did I get started in this? It started with my wife and I being involved in an EVM sidechain called Smart BCH. And at the time, there was no directory sites for it, so you had to remember what all the different services and apps were. And she found it annoying. So she wanted somebody to build an app for it that would show these things. And she said, why don't you do it? And at the time, I couldn't really think of a reason why I couldn't try to do it. So happy wife, happy life, I decided to try and build one. So this was helpme.cash when it first launched for Smart BCH, and it also had Bitcoin Cash stuff on it. This was the first Telegram message I put in, and I remember being exceptionally nervous, even just putting in this message, because I'd never released anything and put it out there for the public to see. Now, helpme looks a little bit better, and most of this is because my wife decided to jump in to learn how to code for the first time and change it from just like a website drag and drop website builder to an actual React dynamic website. And so the only reason it looks like that and it's more interactive is because of her, who's here. So after I did that, and it did get some traction, which was like a bit of a confidence booster, I decided to learn, try to do a real app. And this ended up being Fog of War, which most of you probably don't know about. Because after about 8 months of working on it and learning websites and how to do everything, it was ready to launch. And I was positive it was going to be the most popular app on Smart BCH because it did way too much stuff. And it worked in the end. And then Smart BCH imploded like a week before I was going to release it. So I now had a choice to make. Where do I go? I have an EVM app. It's huge. It works. But Bitcoin Cash had these things called cash tokens. And I had heard about them a little bit, but I didn't know a lot. So I decided to look into it because working on Bitcoin Cash directly would be cool. And I looked at how you do build on Bitcoin Cash with all the opcodes and ran away screaming, because there's no way I understood it at a low level at the time. So I looked into it. And one of the things was the fees, how fees work between EVM and UTXO. So EVM, imagine you have your account. It has 100 balance on it. You send a transaction to the blockchain. It goes to the contracts. The contracts are interacting with global state back and forth. They're doing this thing. You don't really need to worry about it, but this happens. And then when it succeeds, if it succeeds, it pops out the other side. Maybe your account goes from 100 down to 80, and then some got sent somewhere else. To do that, you had to pay a fee because the blockchain did the processing. Okay. On UTXO, it's similar but a little different. So we create a transaction. You still have 100 balance, but it's split across 2 pieces, and those pieces are UTXOs. In our transaction, we're also interacting with a contract, which is in pink. So we include that contract into our transaction. You submit that transaction to the blockchain. Overall, similar concept. Those UTXOs have logic in them, which need to verify and pass. Once they pass, the state updates. So kind of similar process. In this case, you maybe had 100 balance, went down to 80, maybe you put some more on the contract, and you paid a fee. Similar process, but what happens if something doesn't work? On EVM, if there's an error, the global state doesn't get updated, but you still paid for a fee because the nodes had to do the processing still. On UTXO, what happens if you run into an error? It gets rejected. And if you notice, there's no fee deducted because we know there was an error, so it simply rejects it. So what are some other benefits of UTXO? In this case, because we're building the transaction, we know everything the transaction is going to do. There's no black boxes of different contracts being involved like on EVM. And this example shows a Cash Connect window that is just kind of lays out the transaction, everything that happened in the transaction in a much more simple way. Another thing I found with Cash tokens on BCH was that they're native tokens. So a lot of other UTXO chains have some sort of token solution. BCH even has this with SLP. But you need an indexing server that tracks the ownership and the balances. And this makes it a little harder to interact with. The users have to go to the indexing servers. You could, in theory, get different balances and stuff depending on what indexing servers you're looking at. It's easier to burn tokens because the blockchain isn't fully aware of this ecosystem that's happening. But with Cash tokens, it's native. It's directly on the chain. So the miners are actually aware of and validate the tokens. So as an example, this is a transaction pulled from a Bitcoin Cash node. We can see the Satoshi balance at the top, and we can see a token object that shows us the category, the fact that there's an NFT in it, and some data. And this is all directly from a Bitcoin Cash node. And the other thing about UTXO is that it's embarrassingly parallel. The technicals about this are like a bit above me, but a simple example would be something like, imagine you have a parking lot full of cars, and everybody has their own key to their car. So if they want to get in their car and they want to drive away, they don't need to wait for anybody else. They just get in their car and they go. They can all go at the same time. On EVM, it's like you have a valet, and the valet is the one that has to move all the cars individually. And if you don't want to wait for him, you can bribe him and get to go first. So I think it's pretty obvious which one of these two designs is going to run into the bottlenecks first. So this kind of comes down to the Bitcoin Cash scalability. So I looked into both designs and decided that even though I had this EVM project, it might be better and more lucrative long-term to build on Cash tokens, especially since it's so new and cutting edge and not many people know about it. So I decided to build a project, and I spent a couple months on it, and I failed because I couldn't figure out. Thank you. It's okay to fail. So I couldn't figure it out. At the time, the debugging was hard. It's way easier now. There was more tools, more people, and after taking a break, I shelved the project, and I decided to do something even simpler. And that project did work, and that was Badgers.Cash. And Badgers.Cash is just simple time locking. So you throw BCH into the contract, and once the time lock expires, you can pull the BCH back out, and you get Badger coins as well. So this was just kind of a proof of concept. It launched at BLISS last year, so it's been going for a year. So far, so good. This is what the contract for Badgers looks like at like a high level. You just have a single contract. There's a minting NFT inside of it, and then it creates new NFTs inside, and those are the locks people are doing. So overall, pretty simple for an app like this. This is an example of the locking that you do. So when you actually do a lock on Badgers, these are the UTXOs involved. So like, there's not much there. It's not hard to wrap your head around it if you can have it once you actually look at what the contracts are doing line by line. And if you want a full overview of the contracts going line by line, I do explain it in this video on Bitcoin Cash University's YouTube channel. So I created this token. People now get these Badger tokens, so we need something to do with them because a token by itself doesn't really mean anything. So can I do a typical NFT collection on Cash tokens? 10,000 series NFTs are everywhere on EVM. Can you do it on Cash tokens? Yes, you can make a 10,000 series and have them mintable. But having a NFT by itself isn't interesting. They're everywhere on EVM. They're just mostly scams and money grabs. Can we do something with this, maybe with the token? So I decided, can I try to make the minting cheaper by using those Badger tokens as like an option? The answer is yes. So you can do take those tokens and get a minting discount. The last thing I was working on in EVM world was building a web game. And I was taking NFTs from the Fog of War project I made and putting them into the game if they're in your wallet, and then they would interact with the game, do more damage, take less damage, etc. And can I do this with Cash tokens? Because this is the type of stuff I wanted to start doing right away, like as fast as I can with Cash tokens when I started learning about it, and I didn't know if I could. The answer is yes, you can. You can have NFTs, in this case the Badger NFTs, and they have stats that the game will then alter, so you do more damage, etc. And the interesting thing with these is that the stats are actually stored inside of the NFTs. So when you trade them to somebody, the stats are going with it. It's part of it. It's not on an external indexing server. You can do that on BCH as well using the BCMR stuff, but I was interested in knowing what it can do just on chain. So after BLISS last year, I realized what the first project I was working on, why it failed, where I messed up. This was the first tweet I made kind of teasing what that project was. And this project was FundMe.Cash. And this is basically just crowdfunding on Bitcoin Cash. So if you just think of Kickstarter, that's basically what it is, except it's all non-custodial. All the funds are stored on the chain itself in the contract. And as of today, it's raised almost 300 BCH, and there's quite a few more campaigns than it says up there right now, and I think there's like 12 active at the moment, so it's definitely getting more traction, which is awesome. Thank you. So yeah, this uses NFTs in the background, so when you pledge, you get an NFT back to your wallet, and then you can refund the pledge with the NFT. So this is something that's not out yet. This was a number go up with no risk, which seems kind of weird. This project is LoanMe.Cash, which I've shown demoed here to a few people. So this is doing over-collateralized BCH loans. And it's a little weird. It has a bit of a niche use case, but it does exist on EVM in a lot of other projects. So this one, you deposit BCH, and so somebody can deposit BCH as a lender, and they specify some rules about what they want their BCH to be used for in loans. So they specify what's the interest rate that has to be loaned for, and how long can it be loaned for. And then somebody can come along and take a loan, and they have to over-collateralize. So for example, they might deposit 11 BCH and get 10 BCH out. And then they either pay back the loan over time, or they just ignore it and walk away. But at the end, the lender, the people that are putting BCH in to be borrowed, always make a profit in BCH. They cannot get their money rugged. So why? So a lot of countries have capital gains tax, and you don't have to pay capital gains if you're using a loan as a collateral on a loan. So this is entirely going to depend on countries and laws. In Canada, it seems like this is the case as well. So this might be interesting for businesses and stuff that want to get liquidity out of their BCH if they're accepting it, but not have to get a big haircut on capital gains taxes. No idea when it's coming out, but we'll see. At the very least, I'll be doing tutorials on the contracts. And this is what LoanMe is in total for the contracts. So these squares are the contracts themselves, and then the circle ones are kind of like function NFTs that do things and interact with them. So I'm not going to go over this, but there will be a tutorial video about them. So earlier this year, I also said this, where I got distracted by something, as I usually do. And I was going to turn it on. I was able to show it. There was a couple random technical issues to prevent me getting it online right now, but hopefully we'll get some workarounds for that. So that's chess. So this is, I know this has been a little bit of a meme in the Bitcoin space of when chess on Bitcoin. I didn't actually fully know about the details about that when I made this, so I actually went a different way than what a lot of other people were theorizing. So in this case, we are using 8 cash token contracts. So we have the game master contract or chess master contract, and it controls what turn it is and has the king died. The squares contract, which is the board, and then the piece logic, so it's one contract for each type of piece. And in my case, each square of the board is a UTXO living on the squares contract, and they all have their state that manages the board. And when you do a transaction like moving a pawn from square 14 to 22, those UTXOs have to be in the transaction. It will fail without them. And this is how the rules are verified for chess. So if you've got a queen on square 4 and it's moving all the way to 60, all of those UTXOs must be in the transaction in the correct order. The downside with this is there's no check or checkmate, because knowing the entire state of the board, you'd have to throw all those into a transaction, and that would, you might be able to figure it out, but it just seemed too intensive to me, intensive of a process, so I just didn't even try. I just figured it out this way. So with this system, once the king is killed, then the game has to end. The game cannot keep going. So the reason I did this was because there was another project called bitcoincomputer.io that said they were doing off-chain smart contracts, but it's got like a trusted setup. I don't fully understand it. But their demo app was chess. And I wanted to see, can we do this on Bitcoin Cash directly? The answer is yes. But what were the fees? Because I wasn't sure what these transactions would look like. Well, the answer is they're Bitcoin Cash transactions, so a cent or two. The bigger the transaction, more inputs, slightly higher fee. Is this useful or something? I don't know. I did it and wanted to find out. So there are apps on EVM that get much more expensive than this, though, so who knows. This isn't online. I don't know if I will publish it. We'll see. At the very least, there will be tutorial videos about it. So I got my answers. I got distracted, and I figured them out. So now I can go back to my old projects that I have many of. No, instead I feature creeped. So the old system was a single board, and anybody on the planet could do the turns. There was nothing locking it down. So in this case, I decided to lock it down so players have to actually join the chess game. And you have to create a chess game, which also creates new boards. So it shows like that, where a new board will get created on a website. You can click on it to join. You have to, add your bet into it as well, because this is BCH, and it's easy to add stuff like that. So now you have to bet, and the winner will take the pot. And you can do some random stuff, like each square on the board is UTXO, so you could consume those when the game is over as a fee, as a service provider. In theory, this could be integrated into wallets or any website, because it's just on-chain stuff and anybody can interact with it. So there's options there. So those are the things that I've been building and playing with, and it's a very small corner of the ecosystem. This is a list of other projects that are in BCH now or being developed. And you can go to token.cash to see a more complete list. But this list, the categories of these things, it's missing a lot. There's a lot of different things that can still be developed on Bitcoin Cash, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface. And everything I went over and all the things I've done is now outdated because we can do way more with the upgrade that's happening and might be happening already done now. 3 more blocks away. All my stuff is outdated. So if you want to learn what the upgrade is, Callan's talk was really good at technical level. This video by Jeremy is also actually very good. And as I mentioned before, Bitcoin Cash University YouTube channel. This is something I just created. There's not much on it. But I will be adding more to it as I myself learn, and I want to get this information out there for people that want to get into this. Thank you. And if anybody wants to also collaborate in some way and get more stuff on here, then I'm all ears. Oh, and I also have some like random thoughts about walking through contracts and stuff like lessons, and then part of that is people having to actually interact with contracts to get NFTs out as part of the lesson, and then maybe once you complete them all, you get like a graduation diploma or something. So that's possible. So one of the last things is that I wanted to get a vibe check on the BCH community for the devs. Like, what are we thinking? So this is some of the stuff that some public comments that different devs have made, and also in direct PM with me. And I'm not going to read them myself. I'll read the last one, though, which I really agree with. Is that there's literally diamonds strewn about the floor as business ideas and services that could be built. They're just all over the place. It's like the early days of the internet. So come build on Bitcoin Cash, pick up a diamond, and let's do this.
All right, so yes, we are just 3 blocks away, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. But first, does anybody have any questions?
How are you making those pretty good songs?
The songs, my wife and I did a number of them by going back and forth on the lyrics. A few of them were hired out through like Fiverr and stuff like that. And then besides that, it was just random AI stuff and focusing on the lyrics.
Yeah, Bitcoin Pressure. A lot of people loving that song when I play it on the podcast. All right, any other questions? Oh, here we go.
Hi, it's not a question, but a kind of a comment and an encouraging message is that I'm also on the periphery of dabbling in coding and cash script and all that stuff. And one of GP's main concerns is there's such a barrier to entry for people to enter the ecosystem to develop. And I just want to continue to encourage you, because what you've just shown and what you've built from 2 or 3 years of learning, it's kind of telling me I need to be doing the same. And I'm really, like, you've already got a subscriber. If you start making these tutorials, I'm on it. I'm going to follow it and learn it. So please keep doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. We've got...
I will just say that it was much, much harder to get into this like a year ago, like a year and a half ago. It is way easier now, and it's only going to get better.
Yes, we're down to just 2 blocks.
I really love everything that you just showed us, so that was super cool. I'm wondering if you could maybe give us a little teaser, sneak preview of some of the other things that are on your mind that you want to build.
I want to do gaming. I want to do, I have so many ideas about gaming. I have one called Kingdoms in my mind about exploring a world that everybody can interact with. And it's all NFT and fungible tokens everywhere. So I have my hands full at the moment. So if other people want to come in and start grabbing diamonds, then yeah, I'm totally up for that.
Okay, any more for any more?
Can you tell us a bit more about what you said about checkmates and there being a challenge around checkmate on the chess game? That was interesting.
Yeah, so I'm not like super in depth on it, but it's just there's so many combinations. You have to check all of the different pieces on the board to see if they're attacking the king. So like you might be able to figure out a way. I think this is like a common problem with chess. trying to get it into things. And once I saw it, I immediately just backed out and like, can I do something simpler? And the conclusion of not checking for check or checkmate is actually the same conclusion that somebody in 2019 came to for like a theory way to do chess, but they never actually wrote code for it.
Okay, put your hands together for Sayoshi.